Okay. So my presentation will be about psychological aspects of vaccination, because 2 days ago I was talking about psychological aspects of healthcare. So vaccination is one of the facets of healthcare, but still it is a crucially important part in which I have heard this morning several recommendations. I'm sorry, I cannot agree, because majority of the recommendations were about the public or social campaigning policy. And the research shows quite clearly, social campaigning doesn't affect the numbers of vaccination coverage. What affects, and only one thing what affects, is a face-to-face contact between the medical professional and future vaccinee or her parents, which is crucially important to understand why I will be talking about that in this way. So when I talked about healthcare, that our contact between doctor and patient is a very complicated issue, because both patient and doctor have their personality, their value system, and their stereotypes of behavior in specific situations. It means also in healthcare situations. But here, in this picture, we have patient. And I want to stress with all possible power that when we are talking about vaccination, we are not talking with the patient. Because even for majority of vaccines, the disease patient is ill now is counterindication to be vaccinated in this very moment. So what it means, we are talking about vaccination with a healthy people or parents of healthy children. And this changes all the game rules, because they really are in no need at this very moment. They themselves must be persuaded to understand. And here we are entering not the medical field. We are entering here a business-like field. I don't want to say it is a business in a clear, pure sense of the word, but still it is completely other way of argumentation, of persuasion, of reaching common agreement. So if we are looking further on, this is influence of the family on the future consumer or client. This is influence of the team on the doctor who works with this person. And here, a lot of influences are changing behavior here. And what is even more important, when we are talking about treatment situation, we know very well how treatment situation changes the behavior in this relationship. What is different in vaccination situation? It was also proven by research that to talk about vaccination is much more profitable in the situation of the preventive visits to the doctor, not in the treatment visits. Because when patient is sick, it means that he or she is oriented towards getting healthy. That's all. And all extra persuasions or attempts to introduce is out of the scope of this particular person in this situation. So it was proved that the health visits are much more profitable for results to achieve for vaccination purposes. Next thing is that indeed all social and political situation is influencing this process and influencing all parts of that process. And that means that what is a position of people, as the commissioner told, in the responsible leadership positions is very much influencing what will be the results. Continue about what is a decision to do or not to do the vaccination. It is an action. An action, every action has 3 levels of motivation. And this is conscious motivation. We understand very well that we really will get better if we will not get sick. That's clear for everybody, yes? But despite that, it doesn't work as we would like in vaccination field, because we have subconscious motivation. Oh, it will be painful, I am afraid of needles, I have some disappointment with some previous vaccination experiences, or maybe I distrust some statements of the medical milieu because they are involved very much in the common business with big pharma, and so on and so on. And there is a lot of unconscious motivation, which is about some fear of intervention in my body, of some unconscious prejudices or even delusions we all have, and we don't know we do have it. So this is quite complicated situation, but it gets even more complicated if we will think that this contact between doctor and patient or client and patient goes on much more interplayed way. When we are talking about conscious and non-conscious parts of our decision-making process, of our perception process, the most obvious arrow is our communication on that level. But when we are talking about our communication, it is always a dynamics between conscious and non-conscious parts of us, because some of what we heard already now drops to the unconscious level very quickly. It was a research done with the GP's patients, when GPs were asked to tell patients at the end of the visit 4 recommendations. Very simple ones. For example, please take your drugs as is prescribed, not 2 times per day, but 3 times per day. Please smoke less. I understand you can't quit, but if you can, cut a half of your smoking. Third, drink a little bit more water. You are drinking too little. You are dehydrated. And finally, if you can, move 10 minutes per day. It will do a huge benefit for your heart. 4 recommendations. And after these 4 recommendations, patients went out of the office, and at the door of the office, experimenters were asking, how many recommendations doctor told you? Guess how many? 2. 3 small steps to the door, and 2 recommendations dropped out of their memory. Of course, it's clear that those recommendations which were asking for most of the personal attempts, involvement in action, dropped out first of all. So both patient and doctor forgets a lot just in the moment of listening. There are 2 other arrows too, when we are perceiving something which is not told, but I see from body language, and patient or client does the same. And this is also a communication, but most interesting level is this one. When we are feeling each other, and we don't know why. And we know now why. Because researchers found a whole system of mirror neurons in our brain, which reacts to the activities of the brain cells in the other person's brain, almost at the same moment when those cells are activated. So this is a background for our empathy, feeling what the other feels. And this empathy gives us information how the other person is now, what are his emotions. It's an ability to get into the other person's emotional shoes. So this all is more interesting when we are thinking about more complicated situations when we are talking about doctor-patient, and the third one, a family member. And in all these relationships, all this comes even more complicated. And we very often don't understand what happened, why we just agreed that it will be done. It wasn't. It wasn't. So how to understand that? First of all, the research says very clearly, vaccination rates have stalled. They are not increasing. Second, public acceptance of vaccination and immunization programs has decreased, not increased, decreased. And third one, vaccine hesitancy is increasingly recognized as a problem and impacting vaccination uptake rates and vaccination programs' efficiency. So what next? One of the most important factors which we have found, that healthcare professionals are the most important single factor which can change the vaccination rate and program efficacy. It means that we have to invest most of our money not into the social media programs. We don't want to tell that it has to be stopped, not. But don't expect too much from these public advertising companies. It will not work in a way you would like to expect them. I understand that it's most easy. You will hire a company of public relations, they will make you a company, they will print huge posters, and it will be all around the city. What it will change? Nothing. Nothing. What can change something? A real contact between healthcare professional, provider, and the client. And this is, first of all, because only direct human contact involves trust. Because when we want to trust somebody, we look into the eyes. And we see into the eyes of this person, can I trust him or her or not? And when Commissar asked us to raise hands who have been vaccinated for influenza, when patient will ask us, did you vaccinate yourself? You can look straight into their eyes. But if you're not, so what is your power of persuasion? It's zero. So we, medical care professionals, as a professional group, are a reference group for a public, how they behave with their health. So we can not want to be the ones, but we are. So we have to calculate that our behavior makes us stronger in keeping public health. Not so easy profession indeed. If to continue, what is next? An effective communication skills. And this is a big problem in medical education because in very little universities around the world, I know it very well now, have special programs of communication skills training for doctors. Very few. I am happy in our Vilnius University, we have this program since 1988. And it works. Next thing is that there is a group of people we know which can be called fragile. Those elder people, small children, which according the graph we have seen for simple infections are dying much more often. And this needs to be addressed the first. Finally, when we are talking about the decision to make a vaccination for me, for my children, it is a process of change. Because if parents or persons coming to us agree to be vaccinated or to vaccinate their kids, there is no problem. There is no need to do anything else, just to make a shot and that's all. But for those who are hesitant, who are doubtful, or just disagreeing with us. We must to produce the change. And this change has several stages. And these stages are very well described. And they show what difficult and complicated psychological processes must go inside the mind. And even how difficult and complicated skills of the professional have to be involved. I will not read it to you. If you want, you will download that from the site, I suppose, of the conference, and that's all. But I just want to tell, it must be trained. It is not inborn. It is not common sense. It's a specialized knowledge and skills. And I'm working in vaccination programs, talking protection branch since 3 years. And we are trying to create as universal as possible approach to help healthcare providers to be more effective in communication skills. So I hope it will have results in the nearest future, but for now, I just want you all to think over this essential need to improve the most effective tool of vaccination, a doctor himself. Thank you. I still got 2 minutes.
Thank you. We have time for some questions now.
Questions in either language but Estonian. Bet kuria kalba galit klausti. Можно спрашивать меня на любом языке.
Китайский подходит?
Сложнее.
No microphone, it's okay. We can bring microphone to you.
Just thank you very much for this presentation. It seems to me that it's more a call for action other than presentation. And I really appreciate such an approach because I know, well, you're absolutely right that only in a few universities there are kind of specialized courses in communication skills. I know well that Johns Hopkins University, they have a very strong courses for these communication skills for students and for physicians also. But the problem is that these courses are in different time frame and different topics. There are for healthy people, you're absolutely right, and for those who are really ill, because the questions are extremely broad. And today we are talking about communicable disease. And one of these communicable disease, or even two, let's say, it's HIV and TB, when we are dealing not only with healthy or just feeling healthy people, but also with people who are deeply suffering, especially at the end. And we need to have these communication skills also for a bad news, for just palliative support, and etc. And I wonder, how much time can you afford just to give for students in your university for such a kind of a specialized skills which are extremely necessary to start their work and to continue their work? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And indeed, I agree that the tasks which are raised for communication skills in the medical setting and tasks which I was talking about the preventive medical setting are really different, and communicating bad news is a very difficult and very essential skill at the same time. So we have for our students 8 lectures, 2 academic hours each, and we have 16 hours of the practical training. So this is all we have for communication. Another part of the same course is psychosomatic, and in a way it's the same amount of hours, and we use a little bit those skills we already tried to train in the extension on psychosomatic course. So this is what we are doing. I understand it would be better more, but unfortunately the tendencies are to get less.
Okay, thank you. I think the time is now. Okay, one question.
Galima, aš lietuviškai paklausiu. Profesoriau, ar jums teko diskutuoti asmeniškai su kita Lietuvos žinoma profesorė, turinčia keletą vaikų, medicinos profesorė, kuri griežtai nusistato prieš vaikų skiepijimus?
I was asked if I was discussing with another medical professor from Lithuania she's a female, has several children, and she is very strongly against vaccination. No, I don't. Aš nekalbėjau su ja. So I have no impression what are her arguments, but I got very interesting YouTube small movie about an Australian boy who collected the proof of the danger of vaccination. And it was full file of paper, and then he was asked to show. He opened this file, and all papers are blank, absolutely blank. There is no single scientific proof of the danger of vaccination. So therefore, it's not about the science. I want to stress once again, it's not about the science. It's about a belief. And belief is not scientific thing. It's emotional. So therefore, until somebody asks me for help, I will not propose myself for that purpose. Thank you.